Seahawks fans, wherever you may be. Thanks for listening to the show. Join your hosts, Bill Alvstad and Keith Myers, as we talk Seahawks football. Seahawks fans, welcome back to another episode of the Seahawks Playbook podcast. I'm your host, Bill Alvstad, sitting down with co-host Keith Myers, here to talk Seahawks football. It's Friday night. We're separated now by 24 hours after that really kind of gut-wrenching loss to the Dallas Cowboys, 41-35, Thursday night football. For whatever reason, Keith, I'm actually in a pretty decent mood and here to talk about the team and the game. I know that there's some frustration, some fans, a lot of emotion into a game like that. You're frustrated. Your team's now dropped to 6-6, but there were a lot of good things to talk about out of that game. A lot of good things happened. We fell short, obviously. It was always going to be one of those games you had on the schedule that was going to be tough no matter what. And I think Seattle gave them everything that they had and kind of got back into sync, feeling a little bit better about the offense out of this game. The defense still has a few issues, but they also faced probably the best offense currently in the NFL right now, and did pretty well. I mean, they gave up 41, but I thought overall at least we were in contention to take that game even to the very end. So tough loss for sure. Welcome in. Hope you're doing good.
Asked for a week before. We said we weren't sure that the Seahawks were going to beat the 49ers, but we wanted them to at least be competitive. And that's what they were here. This was a game that we're frustrated because it felt like they had it, they were going to win it, and it slipped away. But this is not what they've been in a bunch of these other losses where they weren't competitive. I think the team played pretty well overall. They ran into a really good team. You play that well against almost any other team in the NFL and you get a win. Yeah.
No, I agree.
But Dallas is good.
Dallas is good, and they proved it. Seattle's dropped three in a row and 4 out of the last 5, but the offense looked as good as it's looked since week 3. In fact, according to the Ringer's Shail Kapadia, that was the 9th best offensive performance in the NFL this season by any team, according to EPA, expected plays over average, and the 9th best. So they looked really good. The problem was Dallas had the 8th best ranked offensive performance in the NFL this year, and they beat us by a nose, and that's really what it was. You would like to see the defense have a couple more opportunities to kind of stop them, but they were 4 for 8 in the red zone. They held them to 4 field goals on 4 of those attempts in the red zone. And the offense did play well. We just, Dallas is just a really good team, and we lost. There were a few questionable things down the stretch, but, that's what separates really good teams from average teams. And, Seattle's probably an average team. We'd like to think of them a little better because, they're our home team. We had expectations at the beginning of the year. They've kind of failed to live up to those. But I thought Seattle gave it a pretty valiant effort overall, and there was a lot to like out of this game.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down, it's hard to, don't pin it on any one play. Don't put it on any one call or any of that, because it's a culmination of everything. But if one of the most sure-handed receivers in the entire league doesn't drop a pass, the Seahawks win that game. Because when Geno hit Lockett, across the middle, and that was going, you can't tell where the safety is on the broadcast view, but it looks like he could have taken that to the house. And if there's a safety back there, it's still a 25 to 40 yard gain, depending on the angle. And Lockett never drops passes.
Yeah.
So when I look at that and go, okay, one of the most sure-handed receivers in the league dropping a pass is the only thing that kept you from winning a game, you must have played pretty well.
So on that play, Geno Smith had such great anticipation of where Lockett was going to be. He threw that way early before the break. And if you really pay attention to Lockett's view of the ball on his end, he just got his head turned just a fraction of a second too late and saw the ball at the last second, and it did his best to kind of adjust to that. But really, the ball was out of Geno's hands really early, and it just didn't happen. Yeah,
but that's what
one.
Geno needs to do. That's what he hasn't been doing this year that he did last year, and that's getting the ball out of his hands.
Check this out. We were pressured, according to next gen stats. We were pressured 54.5% of the dropbacks, the highest rate that he's faced in any game in his career with Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
But he wasn't sacked because Geno also had the quickest average time to throw during that same period at 2.42 seconds.
See, and this is what we have been asking him to do all year.
And it's
what he did last year.
Not just him, but the schemes and everything. He was
under 3 seconds last year for an average, and he's at like 3.8 this year. He's got to get the ball out of his hands. In this game, he did, and look what happened.
Against
35 points. They put up big yards, big numbers because he stopped hanging on to it.
Yeah, good things happen. When you get your playmakers the ability to make plays. Prime example was the DK Metcalf touchdown, 70 some odd yards on that quick slant, and Geno led him perfectly, perfect throw, perfect anticipation. After DK caught that, he was behind the defense, and that was it. So, love to see more opportunities like that.
Yeah,
for
nobody's
sure.
catching DK Metcalf.
3 touchdowns to DK Metcalf, six catches on 8 targets, 134 yards for Metcalf, and Jigba looked good. Some third down opportunities for him, 7 catches for 62 yards. Michael Dixon didn't have a punt in the game. We didn't punt, Keith. We didn't punt, which rarely happens in the NFL. Both teams didn't punt. I mean, that's kind of crazy. I think that was the 5th time in NFL history that both teams combined did not have a punt in a game. So offense, if you wanted to see some offense, that was it. If you wanted to see some bad officiating, this game had you covered because they had like 250 yards of penalties, 18 penalties, 19 penalties, 250 yards. Seattle had 10 penalties for 140 yards, I believe. And Rick Woolen had like half of those just on 2 plays.
Yeah,
couple
there
pass
were some
interference.
Terrible calls in this game.
I agreed, Keith. I agree. But what are you going to do? Both teams got penalized. It was really
frustrating because it was like it felt like a couple of them were like penalty on Seattle playing defense.
It was hard because it got not only the team out of rhythm, but it got the game out of rhythm. It's like it was just too much, and all of those penalties, almost all of them were on defensive backs on both teams. And was there a weird point of emphasis thing going on in this game? What was happening? A lot of ticky-tack things, a lot of incidentals, a lot of plays that were completely outside the scope of the play. I don't know. It was tough, rough to watch. I mean, there were so many comments about the penalties and the play calling, or not the play calling, but just the bad calls from the referees in this game, that it was universally hated on both sides.
Yeah, and I think it isn't. I don't want to like. There were a lot of calls in Seattle that I was like, oh, why the hell would you call that? That's not a penalty. But it went the other way too. Seahawks got were beneficiaries of some incredibly ticky-tack calls on Dallas's defensive backs. It was just a poorly officiated game. Not
the problem was
super one-sided, just poorly officiated.
The problem, I'm not going to complain too much, and even Pete doesn't complain about these sorts of things, but it's, there were certain benefits that come to a team when you're penalized, where your entire drive is almost sustained because of penalties. I think in one drive, Dallas had 5 first downs as a result of penalties. That's 7 points just as a result of moving the chains because of a penalty. It's a tough thing to kind of go through. I don't know how to correct that or make it better. But so I want to talk to you about the last play of the game. What should have been a pass out into the flat to DJ Dallas on 4th and 3, I think, to keep the game going. And what happened was Micah Parsons on Dallas's, I think at the 9 tech spot, way outside the tackle, came unabated, got to Geno Smith in 1.3 seconds, I think. 1.3 seconds I read, which is just great. 1.4 seconds. And really the play broke down too on the interior, the normal 5 tech rushing spot where Dexter Lawrence was lined up over Abe Lucas, pushed Abe Lucas back into where DJ Dallas was kind of cutting through after the ball was snapped, and he was going to, fly out into the flat on the outside. And they were expecting Micah Parsons to peel off and cover Dallas, but late and kind of lob that ball over to Dallas to have him pick up the first down. If they would have completed that play, if somehow it worked, Dallas was going to be wide open in the flat. Had nobody within 20 yards of him if he would have caught the ball, where he would have been. And we'd been singing a different tune. Now, you'd mentioned the idea of Tyler Lockett dropping that thing, and here's another play where it's, we're just one play away for it being successful. Now, I can see where the criticism comes in. Why are you scheming that way? Why did you do that with DJ Dallas, our 3rd string running back, in the backfield? Well, they don't really pay attention to who's, 1st string, 2nd string, 3rd string. It's next man up. They've got to run these things.
If you're criticizing that play call, then you're looking at, if that ball gets to him, it is a massive gain.
And they schemed it on purpose with Micah Parsons because Micah Parsons is super athletic, and if he's out of that play, that makes it wide open for Dallas. So
the thing is that, and as far as the blocking, I've seen people like, oh my God, how do you leave that guy unblocked? Well, you leave that guy unblocked because, one, according to the defensive scheme and alignments, he should be covering DJ Dallas.
Yes.
They manipulated everything to make that happen. 2, you leave him unblocked because Dallas brought pressure, and you always block from the inside out. He's the most outside guy. And so he's the guy that you don't block if you have to leave someone unblocked. And it's up to Geno to get the ball out. What?
Yeah. He just happens to run a 4.340 though.
Yeah. Well, you know what? You can only do so much with that. You've got to
only do so much.
If you're blocking it right, which is to block it inside out, it's up to the quarterback to get the ball out of his hands.
If Abe Lucas successfully was able to block Dexter Lawrence on that play, just at the line of scrimmage, a standoff, DJ Dallas gets outside, and at least Geno has an opportunity to make that throw. It's very quick. He's gonna have to try to guess where Dallas is gonna be, but at least he gets the ball off. It just blew up because Dexter Lawrence pushed Abe Lucas back into DJ Dallas, and that was the end of the play. And and it happened so quick. 1.4 seconds is a split second for Micah Parsons to get there, and that was it. I mean, he blew up the play. So it was a good play by Dallas. It was, I'm not going to blame the scheme at all because they didn't have any timeouts. You got to run a play. And Shane Waldron thought that would work based on it working in the past. I think they ran that against the Rams earlier in the year, and it worked. And Sean McVay has run that play with the Rams successfully, quite a few times over the years. And it's designed well, but Micah Parsons is his own little animal.
Yeah. That's what elite players can do.
Yeah.
You can scheme everything right, do things right, and still fail because of an elite player. He has the ability to impact plays that way. It's what happened.
And then on the other side of the ball, Dallas had 11 drives. They scored on 9 of them. But they've scored 33 points in 4 consecutive games in 5 of their past 6. They've got a great offense. And I thought, we played a good game on the road on both sides of the ball. We had some plays on defense. Yeah, we allowed some things. We got penalized to extend drives, etc. Our offense, I thought, played really well. That you mentioned to me last night when we kind of end capped the game text that we had going, that you were a little disappointed in Geno at the end there. But, and I get that.
Well, because there were, in the second half, they scored 7 points. Not all of that's on him. I mean, like I said, Lockett catches that pass. If DJ Dallas can get that other pass, which isn't on Dallas either, if Micah Parsons wasn't quite so fast, right? Things happen, and so there's like parts of this and whatever. But when Geno threw his pick, that was a bad decision. Well covered, double covered, and he had I think it was Charbonnet coming out of the backfield in the flat, wide open. Why are you throwing into double coverage like that when you've got a wide open player? Just like make the right call, like make the right decision, get the ball to the right person. And like that was frustrating because he was doing the right thing in the first half. And then he kind of just went back to what he was doing the rest of the season there and holding onto the ball again. And then, so yeah, that's what was frustrating. It was like, he played so well. This was the Geno we've been hoping for. This is the Geno that we saw last year.
Field goal. I mean, they could have scored 31 points in the first half. Yeah.
I guess this is the Geno that we saw last year. This is the one that we, that we wanted to see all this year, and we finally did. And the offense was awesome against a really good defense. This is what we've expected to see all year and haven't.
So how do you feel good in a loss?
Well, I don't know.
It's hard because fans are so torn good in a today. Loss? Like, well, okay. So here's kind of the deal. If you're a real practical person, if you're an optimist by nature, if you're realistic in the way that you kind of view these things, I think you come away from this game feeling okay. Now, you wish that you had a better record at this point. You wish you hadn't given away a couple of different losses in this season to inferior teams, specifically the Rams. And this loss wouldn't have been so hard to take. It's hard to take because like you said earlier, we were right there. We could have got this game. That's the frustrating part. But you come away though with an offense that gives you hope that if you can duplicate this against even a slightly inferior team, let's just say the Philadelphia Eagles come to town, there's a chance that we could have a chance in these games, which is all you really want to do. I think if you could say, if Seattle could figure out a way to win one of the 49ers or the Eagles, we're actually in okay shape as far as making the playoffs. You can get 9 or 10 wins. I think you can get in. It's not going to be crazy. Obviously, once you're in, anything can happen. It's not looking great as far as advancing and so forth based on our seeding. But I think the outlook for the season isn't over. It's not like the season's over at this point. Everyone's kind of doom and gloom. I'm ready to write the season off. We're horrible. The evening of the game and the next day are kind of brutal when it comes to social media and this team. But I think if you're realistic, and you step back a little bit, you can take away a lot more positives out of this game than negatives, even from the loss.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that you and I've talked about is that if this offense takes off, this team will be fine. Well, the offense finally showed up. It's taken all year, but they finally showed up. They've got 5 games left. If the offense continues to play like they did in this game, if Geno continues to get the ball out of his hands and to the right people, this team's in good shape. They're fine. It would have been great if it had happened, 2 months ago. But hey, it finally showed up. Now go do something with it.
Yeah, no, I agree on that side. But how do you address the defense that is not good? I guess I just don't agree with that statement. So how do you address something that I don't agree with? Well, I guess, you could argue that, Dallas's 406 yards, 79 plays, was an aberration. Wasn't the real defense that showed up and played. I don't know. I don't know any other way to say that they were bad. They gave up 41 points, 10 out of 11 drives they scored points. 9 out of 11 drives they scored points. And we were outscored 14-0 in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, and there was an entire drive where they got 5 first downs via penalty, most of which were kind of bullcrap penalties. I'm just saying, there's more to the story, and you're playing against the best offense in the league. So, I'm not going to watch one game against the best offense of the league and use that as the reference point and say they're bad.
Well, no. But you've got 12 games in the books now where you can point to and say, this is who we are. And, we're ranked. I don't have the stats in front of me now, but I think we're close to 21st or 22nd in the NFL in points allowed, runs, yardage allowed, et cetera. Advanced stats kind of paint the picture that we're in that realm. And being 20th in the NFL is middling by anybody's standard.
Yeah, but there's a difference between being middling and being bad. You said they were bad.
They've been bad. They've been bad. They could have been wiped out even more by the 49ers. The Ravens took it to them hard. Yeah, they've been bad.
And in both of those games, they got nothing from the other side of the ball.
It's definitely hand in hand, isn't it? I agree with that.
So, yeah, I'm going to push back on if you saying the defense is bad, because they're not. The faults of the Seahawks team is the offense not showing up. The offense has shown up in one game this year, and they lost that game because they played a better team. But they've shown up in one game out of 12.
2 or 3. Detroit.
No. You had a few plays here and there. They scored enough to win. They
haven't played a full game.
The offense didn't show up and run and be efficient and do the things that it's supposed to do in any of the other games. Just look at the third downs. This is the first game that the offense showed up.
Consistently. But yet left it out there in the fourth quarter. Didn't score any points, didn't have any scoring drives, and we're 0 for 3 on fourth downs. But yeah, I'll say that, but at the same time, yes, they did show up. They did play well. They played well enough to win. If the defense just did a little bit more, I think, in this game. Doesn't mean that they were horrible, Keith. I'm not going to say the defense was horrible, but they weren't great.
No one's saying they're
it's
great.
It's a team
but I'm
game.
pushing back
they need
on,
to be.
I'm pushing back on
we
you
still
saying
haven't seen a complete
that this
game
is
yet.
a bad defense.
It's not great.
They lost a game to the Rams in which they gave up 17 points despite being on the field for 41 minutes. That is a good performance. That is a good defensive performance. The offense failed them. They could not score. They could not keep the defense off the field to give them a break. They could not move the ball and even pin the Rams deep. They could not even flip field position. That game was they lost because of an offensive failure, not the defense. The defense was not the reason they lost that game. And, there have been, right? There's been 4 games where the defense has played pretty bad, and therefore that's why they're statistically, slightly below average. First Rams game, 49ers, this game, and the Baltimore game.
Yeah. Where they couldn't stop the run and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And in I
agree.
All of those games, except for the Dallas game, the offense was terrible, and the time of possession was 2-1 in favor of the opponent.
Yeah, they go hand in hand. There's no question. But when the defense is on the field, the defense is on the field, and you've got to measure them by their performance when they're out there. Now, granted, not having the ability to sustain drives totally impacts the time of possession and time you're out on the field and the stats against your defense. I get that. So that's why we're 6-6. We're 6-6.
This is a team that's losing games because of the offense for the most part. They've lost the game because of the defense once.
I disagree with that.
They've lost the other 5 games.
It's okay
they've
that
lost
we're
because
disagreeing.
of the offense.
Yeah, it's not as cut and dry as that, but I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. So where do we go from here? I mean, after this game, psychologically, I think maybe the team's got a little bit more confidence now. It was nice to get Abe Lucas back. It'd be nice to be able to
definitely mattered.
It'd be nice to get Ken Walker back. Pete kind of alluded to the idea that Ken maybe have enough time this in this extended break in between games where he might be able to return, which would be good. It'd be nice to have this team have a full complement of players. Mm-hmm. I understand that Jordan Brooks had a knee bruise, essentially. So he's likely going to be back. He said it was pretty swollen up, but it was, it's a bruise. It's not anything else structural. I can't think of any other injuries per se out of this game. Bradford, I thought, played well. The offensive line didn't give up any sacks. Now, they were pressured, but Gino was getting the ball out quick enough. It didn't matter. And that's the way that this team needs to play.
That's the way
I think every team in the NFL needs to kind of play that way. Because, no offensive line is going to hold up forever. So anyway, it'd be really cool to see if the Seattle Seahawks can play offense the way that they played in this last game for the rest of the year and into the playoffs. I think we could actually do something. In fact, Pete alluded to that in his Brock and Salt interview this morning, where he was like, watch out. It's like, we need to win these games. Yeah, absolutely. But I feel confident we're going to the playoffs. He said, well, it might kind of sound weird that I'm saying that we're 6-6, but that's what I believe. And I believe him. I mean, I do. I think that, he sees things a certain way, and he knows the schedule coming up. He knows it's not going to be easy these next 2 games. He's hoping that he can get probably one of them. But he's hoping that this is kind of their coming out party on their offense, and maybe they've turned the corner. And we'll see. Time will tell. The 49ers game is going to be going to be rough, but
yeah, I mean, that's what
we'll see.
We'll see how this one goes. This one is going to be a challenge. This next game, the 49ers have shown over the last couple of seasons that they're the better team. Can Seattle change that narrative?
And it's going to have to come from the coaching, because they've been out-coached. Not just outplayed on the field, out-coached, out-schemed. And they need to show up. In this game for them to have a chance.
It's been on all facets. It doesn't have to just come from the coaches. The players have to play better too. They have to execute better. They've got to do better. That's not just on the coaches.
I think this gives them an opportunity to scheme up a little bit better. The last game they had 4 days rest. This game they're going to have 10. So I think that's going to make a difference, hopefully. So anyway, let's get out of here. It's not a game we necessarily need to flush. I thought we played well on both sides and well enough to win. Just faced a good team, a good solid team. We were ahead until the last 4 minutes in that game, which was disheartening to give up that lead at the end there. But sometimes that happens. It's the NFL. So anything else, Keith?
Nah. Well, I do have one thing, and it's nothing to do with the Seahawks. In about 45 minutes after recording this, the Ducks and Huskies play in the final Pac-12 championship. Who you got?
Wow. God, I'm probably going to piss off all my listeners here, but I like the Ducks because I grew up in the Seattle area, and then after college moved to the Portland area and kind of adopted my teams when I got there, the Blazers, the Ducks, the Beavers, and just kind of, became a fan over time when Brooks was the coach and later on. And so I still like the University of Washington. I still watch them and pay attention and stuff. Absolutely. But I think in this game, the way the Ducks have been playing the last 4 or 5 weeks since that first Washington matchup, and Washington struggled a little bit here and there to score points and so forth. So on a neutral field, I kind of like the Ducks in this game. Yeah,
I have a hard time picking against the team that won the first matchup simply because of, they won the first
undefeated
matchup. But I will say that the Huskies haven't looked as good the last 4 weeks, and the Ducks have blown everyone out. So, yeah.
I know one thing: the winner of this game is going to the college championship. Four teams at the end there, so it'll be very interesting to see.
I mean, the Huskies are third; they're number 3. If they win,
I would think both teams. Like if Oregon wins by 3 points in overtime, I think both teams deserve to go. If this game is really close, so we'll see. Wouldn't that be crazy if they matched up a third time in one season in a championship game?
Oh, I'd love that.
I would too.
I mean,
that's
good
two storyline. That's good.
These are two really good teams that are really well coached. It's a lot of fun. And sure, I'd love to see them play again because they entertain me.
Right.
So.
Right. Cool. All right, let's get out of here. Find Keith on Twitter at MyersNFL. You can find me at NW Seahawk. The show is Seahawks Playbook Podcast. Find it on your favorite podcast platform. And when you do, hit that subscribe button. YouTube channel as well. Same thing there. And we'll see you next time. Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Seahawks Playbook Podcast listeners, thanks for joining us for another edition of the show. You can find us on Twitter. Bill is at NW Seahawk. Keith is at Myers NFL. And the show is at Hawks Playbook. You can listen and subscribe to the show at SeahawksPlaybook.com.